Daniella, I've said it before. You will not go to school this term.
Mama, please, I can't stay home. I'll find a way. You can't just throw everything away like this, Mama.
Throw everything away? Do you know what it costs to keep you here? I have no money this month, Daniella. No money! And you will stay home. Daniella, you cannot stay. It's over.
I don't care. I will find a way. I'll sell books, beg for help, anything. I am not leaving school.
Enough! You will listen. You will stay home. Your uncle paid 2 terms of fees, and he said he cannot do it again. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to tell your teachers when they send you home next month?
I will find a way.
Find a way?
Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back to Tales by Larinzy, the home of powerful stories, filled with suspense, life lessons, and unforgettable twists.
If you had asked any teacher at Greenfield College to name their most promising student, 7 out of 10 would have said Daniella without pausing to think. She was 17. She was in SS3, the final year. The year where everything you had worked for either paid off or didn't. She was slender and tall, with a face that people stopped to look at. She wore her hair in 2 flat twists that she did herself every Sunday night, and she had a habit of chewing on her pen when she was thinking, which meant the ends of most of her pens looked like they had survived a small disaster. She was also, by every measure the school had, the best student they had produced in a decade. First in her class for 5 years straight. First in Port Harcourt State in the mock exams. She had won the inter-school debate competition twice. She had written a science essay that a teacher had submitted to a national competition without telling her, and it had come second, and the prize money, 20,000 naira, had paid for her mother's hospital bill that year. But none of that paid school fees. None of that helped the fact that her father had died when she was 12, leaving behind a small shop that her mother had tried to run and failed at, leaving behind a house in a neighborhood where the power went out every day and the road flooded when it rained, leaving behind a daughter who was too smart for her situation and knew it, which was its own kind of pain. Her mother cleaned offices in the evenings. Her uncle, who sold building materials in Aba, had been paying her fees on and off for 3 years. On and off was the correct phrase. There had been 2 occasions where Daniella had been sent home mid-term for fees. Both times she had returned. Both times something had worked out at the last minute. Now her uncle had said he could not do it again. He had his own children. He had his own school fees to worry about. He said it with genuine sadness in his voice, which made it worse because it meant there was no one to be angry at. After school that day, Daniella sat at the back of the school library. Cool air, quiet, the smell of old books and cleaning fluid, and opened her jotter to a blank page. She wrote at the top, "Options." Then she stared at the blank page for a very long time. She wrote, 1. Bursary from school. She had already applied. They had said the fund was exhausted. She wrote, 2. Government scholarship. She had applied twice. She had not heard back either time. She was not sure anyone heard back. She wrote 3. External scholarship. How? From where? How do you find these things when you don't know where to look? She put down her pen. Outside the library window, the school's sports court was bright in the afternoon sun. 2 boys were playing table tennis and laughing about something. A girl sat under the mango tree at the edge of the court, eating chin-chin from a paper bag. Daniella watched them and felt, very specifically, the loneliness of someone who belongs somewhere but cannot afford to stay. The letter came on a Friday. Not a letter, an email first. Daniella's school email, which she checked every few days on the one computer in the library that had working internet. Subject line, "Congratulations, Meridian Global Scholars, Program, Full Award Offer." She thought it was spam. She almost deleted it. She read it standing up, leaning over the keyboard, and by the second paragraph, her legs were doing something strange. Not weak exactly, just suddenly very aware of themselves, like legs that had been running a long time and had just been told they could stop. The email said, "Your application to the Meridian Global Scholars Program has been successful. Full scholarship, International Institute campus. All costs covered, tuition, accommodation, feeding, transport, a monthly living allowance, a guaranteed university placement upon completion of the 2-year preparatory program." She had not applied. That was the strange part. She had not applied to any Meridian program. She searched her memory. She applied to a lot of things, cast her net widely across every scholarship website she could find, sometimes filling forms at midnight when the library internet was fastest. She must have applied. She must have forgotten. There was a phone number at the bottom of the email. She called it the next morning from the school phone in the admin office, telling the secretary it was about her academic results. The man who answered had a calm, warm voice. He introduced himself as Mr. David Nwachukwu, Program Coordinator. He spoke like a man who had done this call many times and was always happy to do it. He confirmed everything in the email. He said Daniella had been selected from over 4,000 applicants across West Africa based on her academic record and the essay she had submitted. He quoted a line from it back to her, which she recognized. "We try to find students that the normal system is failing," he said. "Students with exceptional ability who deserve a door that their circumstances haven't opened yet." Daniella sat in the admin office with the phone pressed to her ear and felt something move through her chest. Not joy exactly, not yet, because she had taught herself not to feel joy until a thing was confirmed and in her hands. It was more like the feeling of hearing a sound that might be rain, when you have been very dry for a very long time and you are not yet sure. "What country?" she asked. "The program is based in Switzerland," Mr. David said. "Geneva campus. It's a 2-year course before full university placement. Your WAEC results will be processed on arrival. We have an arrangement with the exam board." He said the visa would be handled. He said the flight would be arranged. He said all she needed was to say yes, submit her ID documents, and show up. "There is one thing," he said as the call was ending. "Our spaces are very limited and other students are still being considered. We typically need a confirmation within 4 days." 4 days. She thanked him. She hung up. She sat for a moment in the quiet admin office with the afternoon sun, making yellow squares on the floor. Then she walked to her classroom, sat in her seat, opened her economics textbook to the page on trade policy, and stared at it without reading a single word. She told her mother that evening. They were in their kitchen, which was also part of the sitting room because the house was small. A gas cooker, a wooden table, a wall calendar from 2 years ago that her mother had kept because she liked the picture on it, a window with a broken latch that let in the night sounds of the neighborhood. Her mother was frying plantain. The oil was hot and loud. Daniella said it quickly, the way you say something that you're afraid will sound too good. "Mama, I received a scholarship offer today, full scholarship, to go abroad and study." The frying spoon went still. Her mother turned from the cooker slowly, the way people turn when they need a moment to decide how to respond to news that could be either wonderful or terrible. Daniella showed her the email on her phone. Her mother held the phone at arm's length. She needed reading glasses that she had not yet bought, and read it slowly, her lips moving a little over the longer words. When she finished, she put the phone down on the table. She did not say anything for a while. Is it real? She said finally. I think so, Mama. I called the number. I spoke to a man. He knew about my essay. Which essay? The one about education systems. I submitted it to a lot of competitions. I think I submitted it as part of a scholarship form, too. I apply to so many things I can't always remember. Her mother looked at the phone again. She looked at the name. Meridian Global Scholars Program. It was printed in bold at the top of the email, and beneath it a small logo, an open book with a torch above it, and underneath the words, Geneva, Switzerland. Switzerland, her mother said quietly. Yes, that is far. Yes. They looked at each other across the small kitchen. The plantain was burning slightly. Her mother turned and rescued it without looking, the way mothers do things in their own kitchens without needing their eyes. I am scared, her mother said. She did not say it like a complaint. She said it like a fact. Me too, Daniella said, but you want to go. It was not a question. Her mother knew her. Her mother had watched her study by candlelight when the power was out. Her mother had seen her win things. Her mother knew, better than anyone, what this kind of hunger looked like on her daughter's face. I have to go, Daniella said. Mama, I don't have another way. Her mother plated the plantain. She put it on the table. She sat down and folded her hands and looked at the window with the broken latch, and the sounds of the neighborhood came through it. Then go, her mother said. Go and write to me. Every week. She pointed at the food. Eat first. There were 9 of them at the airport. Daniella counted them in the departure lounge of Port Harcourt International Airport, recognizing them by the way they were all doing the same thing she was doing. Looking at the others, wondering, uncertain in the exact same way. They were all young. They were all carrying the careful bags of people who had packed and repacked 3 times, trying to look like they knew how to go abroad. A Meridian representative had met them at the check-in counter, a smiling young woman named Sandra with a lanyard and a clipboard who ticked their names, collected copies of their passports, and handed each of them a blue folder. Inside the folder, a printed copy of their offer letter, a school prospectus, a welcome letter signed by the director of programs, and a 1-page packing guide. Everything looked official. Everything looked careful. Daniella sat next to a girl named Chisholm from Anambra, who was 16 and had brought 2 novels in her carry-on because she could not sleep on flights. On her other side was a boy named Emeka, 17, from Benin City, who kept bouncing his leg and watching the departures board as though he thought it might change its mind. You nervous? Chisholm asked Daniella. A little, Daniella said. You? Very, Chisholm said without embarrassment. But I figured if I am scared and I don't go, I'll still be scared back home. At least this way the fear is going somewhere useful. Daniella looked at her. She liked that sentence. She stored it somewhere. They flew at 11 p.m. By 2 in the morning they were somewhere over the dark continent, and Daniella was sitting at the window watching the nothing below. No city lights, no coast, just the deep dark of the Atlantic, and thinking about her mother in the small house with the broken window latch, and the 2-year-old calendar, sleeping now probably, or lying awake worrying. Both were possible. She had not told anyone at school, not her friends, not her teachers. Mr. David had suggested gently that scholarship slots were competitive and it could cause tension. She had agreed without question. Switzerland arrived cold, not the cold of Harmattan, which is dry and dusty and familiar. This was a different kind of cold, deep and clean and everywhere, getting inside your jacket and your collar and living there. Daniella had never felt anything like it. She pressed her face briefly against the glass of the van window and watched the country go past. Green hills, white houses, church towers, roads that were smooth and quiet. She had expected someone official at the airport. What came was a woman. She was standing beyond the arrivals gate with a printed sign, Meridian Scholars. She was African, Nigerian, Daniella thought, by the sound of her English. She wore a gray blazer and good shoes and carried herself with the calm authority of someone used to being listened to. She introduced herself as Madame Josephine. She smiled at each of them in turn, the warm, slightly practiced smile of someone greeting people they are expecting. "Welcome," she said. "You must be exhausted. The van is ready. We'll go straight to the campus. You can rest and we'll do the orientation tomorrow morning." Nobody asked which campus. Nobody asked how far. They were tired and cold and in a country where they did not speak the language, and Madame Josephine was confident and warm and seemed to know exactly where things were. So they followed. That is the honest truth. They followed, because that is what you do when you are 19 years old in a foreign country and someone with a clipboard knows where the van is. The van drove for nearly 2 hours. Daniella watched the road signs. She could not read Swiss German, but she could track direction on her phone. She had downloaded an offline map before leaving, one of 20 careful preparations she had made. The blue dot moved east, and then north, away from the city, away from where she had imagined a school would be. The landscape outside the window changed. Fewer towns, longer stretches of field, mountains growing large and close in the evening distance. She said nothing. She watched. The building they arrived at was large and clean. There was no name above the entrance, no sign, no school flag. Just a security camera above the main door that tilted slowly as their van came into the courtyard, and a heavy front door that Madame Josephine opened with a key card. Inside, a reception area, clean floors, a vase of artificial flowers, a woman at a desk who did not look up. "Before we go to your rooms," Madame Josephine said in the lobby, "we need to collect your travel documents, passport, ID, everything. This is standard Swiss immigration procedure for international student arrivals. Your documents will be processed overnight and returned within 48 hours. Daniella felt something shift inside her. "Why do they need the physical passport?" she asked. "Can't they just take a copy?" Madame Josephine looked at her. The smile remained. "It's their process, not mine," she said pleasantly. "Believe me, I've brought students through this many times. By tomorrow afternoon, you'll have them back. It's just paperwork." Around her, the other students were already unzipping bags, pulling out passports. Chisholm handed hers over. Emeka handed his over. One by one, blue and green and burgundy booklets went into the folder Madame Josephine held open. Daniella held hers for 3 extra seconds. Then she put it in the folder. That night, in the clean room with 5 other girls, 4 of them already asleep, Daniella lay on her back and stared at the ceiling. The ceiling was white and plain. The window had curtains. Outside it was completely quiet. No generator, no music, no neighborhood sounds. Just the deep silence of a place with no people nearby. Later that night, they were asked to gather in a hall for freshers' orientation. The hall smelled of incense and something more, iron, dust, and a faint, acrid tang she couldn't place. Candles flickered along the walls, throwing long, dancing shadows. At the front stood Madame Josephine, flanked by 2 women dressed in dark robes embroidered with strange symbols. In the center of the hall rested a low wooden table. On it was a small, dark calabash filled with a thick, reddish-brown liquid that shimmered oddly in the candlelight. "This is your initiation," Josephine said. Her voice was calm, almost hypnotic. "Drink. and your loyalty will be sealed. Refuse, and the door you think you entered will close forever. Your brilliance will mean nothing. You understand? The girls lined up, fear twisting their stomachs. Daniella's hands shook violently. She had no choice. The doors were locked, cameras tracked every movement, and the guards' eyes never left the room. When it was her turn, Josephine gestured. Drink, and swear to serve, obey, and remain silent. Your mind and body belong to the institution. Only those who drink are chosen. The liquid smelled earthy, bitter and strange, a mixture of herbs and something metallic. Daniella's lips trembled as she brought the calabash to her mouth. Every instinct screamed, "Don't," but she knew she could not survive refusal. She drank. The taste burned her throat and settled in her stomach like fire. The shadows in the room seemed to bend toward her, whispering, almost audibly. A chill ran through her veins, a silent oath locking itself inside her. She had no choice. She had joined them. The days that followed were suffocating and surreal. The girls were trained in every detail of serving clients, the movements of the body, the tones of the voice, the subtle ways to seduce without showing fear. Daniella obeyed, every action precise, her mind retreating behind a wall of observation. They were taught to memorize clients' habits, favorite wines, preferred touches. Mistakes were punished subtly, a glare, a whispered threat, or an extra shift that left their muscles screaming. The hallways themselves felt alive, echoing with whispers and footsteps that were never their own. Daniella's mind never left her plan. She memorized doors, locks, shifts, the paths of guards. Every small detail became a lifeline. Her brilliance was the one thing they could not strip from her, and it was her only weapon. The night came like a predator. Daniella was dressed in the uniform prescribed for her assignment. Her stomach churned with fear. She walked into the room with the client, a man older than she expected, whose eyes were sharp but not cruel. Her heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to run, but she remembered the calabash, the oath she had been forced to drink, and the locked doors of the hall. Resistance now would have meant torture, disappearance, or worse. When she finally spoke, it was quiet, careful, rehearsed, but her eyes betrayed her terror. The man noticed. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. There was no judgment in his voice, only concern. Daniella whispered the truth. The oath, the rituals, the training, the horror of what they demanded. She expected anger or punishment. Instead, the man's expression softened. He slid a card across the table. "You're not alone," he said simply. "I can help you leave this. Trust me." Over the next days, Daniella memorized everything. Guard shifts, security cameras, back corridors. When a storm finally cut power to the building, she led Emeka and Chisholm through maintenance stairwells and service doors, avoiding the main checkpoints. They woke the others quietly. Fatima was the hardest to convince. Not because she was foolish, but because she had believed in the scholarship more than anyone. Accepting the truth meant accepting that everything she had sacrificed had been for a lie. But eventually she closed her physics textbook and asked the only question that mattered. What do we do? They had no passports. They were in a strange country whose language they barely understood. Their phones had little battery, and the building had no Wi-Fi. Whoever brought them here had made sure they would feel trapped without even locking the doors. It was Daniella who noticed something on Olumide's phone, a blue dot on a map. They were near a small town called Arbon, beside a large lake, and somewhere across that water was another country. At 4:15 in the morning, they climbed out through a small bathroom window. The grass outside was wet and freezing. One backpack got stuck in the window. Someone dropped a phone in the dark grass. For a moment, panic gripped them, but they found it and kept moving. No one chased them. And that was the strangest part. The real prison had never been the building. It was the passports they didn't have, the fear that no one would believe 7 undocumented African students wandering the streets before sunrise. Still, they kept walking. By the time they reached the town, the sky was beginning to brighten. A man was opening his bakery when he saw them standing outside. Daniella stepped forward. She had practiced the sentence in her head during the entire walk. "We are students," she said slowly. "We have been trafficked. We need the police." The man looked at them for a long moment. Tired faces, wet shoes, backpacks clutched tightly. Then he opened the door and said softly, "Come inside." Within 20 minutes, the police arrived. What followed was hours of questions, interpreters, and paperwork. But the truth slowly came out. The scholarship foundation that had recruited them was actually part of a trafficking network that had been luring young African students for years. The most shocking discovery came later. The entire operation was run by a woman named Grace Adekunle, a woman who had once been trafficked herself when she was 19. Instead of destroying the system that hurt her, she had learned it and rebuilt it. When Daniella heard this, something inside her hardened. She could not change what had happened, but she could make sure the truth was heard. "I want to testify," she said. Months later, Daniella stood in a courtroom and told the entire story. The letter, the journey, the building, the escape in the cold morning air. And when the case was over, they received a real scholarship to continue their education, and in 2 years, she returned home to Nigeria, different from the girl who had left. Stronger, wiser, and determined that no other young dreamer would fall into the same trap again.
Sometimes danger doesn't come looking dangerous. It comes disguised as opportunity. Always try to verify opportunities before trusting them, and never rush into offers that seem too good to be true. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe to Tales by Larinzy for more stories with powerful lessons. And until next time, be good. Love you all.